Hello everyone and welcome back to the Sports Porch. I hope that you are all doing well and welcome back to another video in my NFL Power Rankings and Team Breakdown series. If you guys have been enjoying this series so far, make sure you drop a like on this video as well as subscribing and turning on post notifications. I have a goal to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you could help me out with that, I would greatly appreciate it. I also just want to say every single day up until the NFL season, you're going to be getting from me a look at every single team's strengths, their weaknesses, some storylines for the upcoming season, as well as some key players both on the field as well as for your fantasy rosters. And then I'll just be giving an overall schedule overview and win-loss predictions. So if you're interested in any of that, please consider doing all of that. One more housekeeping note, quite literally housekeeping. This is the last video you will see in this house, at least for now. I will be moving back into college for presumably, hopefully, if everything goes right, my last year there. So wish me luck there, and in the next video, if you see me in a new setting, that's where I'm going to be for the next half a year, so however long college is. So with all that out of the way, let's get into team number 12, the Indianapolis Colts. They're the next team in my tier 2 of my power ranking tiers. They are on the fringe of contention. Once again, descriptions of all of the power ranking tiers in the description box below, and you can check all those out and what those mean any further. Coaching analysis. Everybody here is in year 4. Chris Ballard as general manager, Frank Reich as head coach, Marcus Brady at offensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus as defensive coordinator, and Bubba Ventrone at special teams coordinator, all in year 4. Strengths of this team: the offensive line is really good. You've got Quentin Nelson, best guard in the league besides Zach Martin. You can argue back and forth between the two. I'm not an offensive line expert, but I do know those two guys are kind of in a tier of their own in the guard class, and then it's kind of everybody else. Ryan Kelly as well, along with Braden Smith, Mark Glowinski, as well as Eric Fisher, who they signed from Kansas City, but we'll talk about him and sort of that whole situation a little bit later. Front 7 for this team is also very good. DeForest Buckner, trading for him seems to have been a really good move for this team. Darius Leonard just got a big payday, seemed to be well deserving of that. Grover Stewart on the line there. Bobby Okereke, I'm so sorry, I totally butchered that. And then drafting Quittipe, who already looks really good to start out the preseason, their first round pick coming in from Michigan University. And then the secondary is also good, but more importantly, the secondary is very deep as well. You've got Kenny Moore, Xavier Rhodes had really a revelation last year coming over from the Minnesota Vikings where he looked awful. Julian Blackmon really broke out last year. Kari Willis, Rocky Sin is solid. TJ Carey, these are all names that are really good. They're just solid secondary players, and it's almost a debate of whether it's nice to have one alpha corner and then everybody's kind of meh or not great or average, versus here with the Colts where you have a lot of good players on the team, a lot of good players who, run 3-4 deep at the position, compared to not having a guy like a Jalen Ramsey or a Jair Alexander, which luckily for the Rams in their case, they have Jair and then also a bunch of other really great guys. So that's the case there with the strengths for this team. They do have some really, really key weaknesses here, and I just want to say before we move on, I did make these power rankings before all this stuff came out about the Colts and being injured, and that is one of the concerns with this team. That's where I start with them. They have injury concerns times a million. You've got Carson Wentz, who's maybe going to miss the first half of the year. We don't really know how long he's going to be out for. Quentin Nelson has the same injury, I guess, from when he was a kid or whatever, just hasn't really noticed it. I guess somehow it's not as bad as Carson Wentz's injury, or it's not as big, whatever the case may be there. Eric Fisher tore his Achilles last year. We don't know how he's going to be able to come back from that, or if he's going to come back from that at all, potentially. Paris Campbell, the story of his career has been that he can't stay healthy. T.Y. Hilton is now expected to be out for multiple weeks, potentially half the season there for him. And as well as Marlon Mack. I know they have Jonathan Taylor, who has taken his job at this point, and even Nyheim Hines to that point as their scat back. But Marlon Mack, I think, tore his Achilles as well last year or 2 years ago. This team has a lot of glass cannons on it. I'll just say that much. If they can play, then they're really stinking good. But until I see it from them, until I see a full healthy season from them, I think I'm right in having my concerns for this team, and I think that's already shown this off season. I mean, we're not even playing games yet, and they already have guys hurt. We're playing preseason games, and guys are getting hurt. So moving on from there, the receiving group isn't the best. Even with T.Y. Hilton on the team, he's kind of regressed. He used to be looked on as one of the best receivers in the NFL when he had Andrew Luck throwing the ball to him. He's kind of regressed into a good receiver, but I think he's a little old at this point, a little past his expiration date. Reminds me a lot of A.J. Green. Michael Pittman looks to be their kind of star in the making. We'll see how good he can really be. I think that he can really be good for them. I'm not sure if he can be great in this sort of next tier of wide receivers, this next wave of wide receivers coming up. I hope he can be. I have a lot of faith in him. Zach Pascal as well. Paris Campbell, we mentioned a little bit earlier as just being always hurt. Let's hope he changes that this year. Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox at tight end. Mo Alley Cox, I guess, is notorious for dropping passes. Jonathan Taylor doesn't do much for the receiving game, but he is there. And then they do have Nyheim Hines, who, as I said before, is their primary scat back. He's really only in. You're only going to see him for passing downs. So, and then the last spot, it's got to be quarterback. I mean, ever since Andrew Luck has retired, Chris Ballard has really struggled with trying to find a replacement. He had Jacoby Brissett, who was just okay. He's now on Miami. He had Phillip Rivers last year, who was good at times, but he also really did lose them some games. And now he's retired, so now he had to go out and get desperate and get Carson Wentz, who has injury history. Behind him, Jacob Eason has a really great arm. He just has to develop really everything else that comes with that. Brett Hundley, they signed, I'm pretty sure, when Carson Wentz got hurt. As a Packer fan, I can tell you, don't get too excited about him. And then Sam Ehlinger has looked good in the preseason, although I will say I think they could have easily gotten him as an undrafted free agent. So the quarterback position really does look shaky, especially if Carson Wentz is out for half the year or whatever it is. I do hope that when he comes back, he looks like some of his 2017 self, because if not, this team is really going to look like they did 2 years ago with Jacoby Brissett at QB. Storylines and question marks heading into the year. Is Carson Wentz the answer for this team? Does he play for this team? I guess is the better question. He's going to be out for, I would bargain he'll be back like week 3 or something. I don't know for sure. They gave a really wide time range for when he's going to potentially come back. I think Carson Wentz will be certainly much better this year than he was last year on the Eagles. He's coming back to Frank Reich, a coach which they have a great relationship. I've heard some stories where they were, I think this was 2017 when Carson was a rookie. They both had this screensaver of like the same exact Bible verse or something like that. Like these two guys, Frank Reich and Carson Wentz, have a really insane and unseen connection, honestly, when it comes to quarterback and head coach. So I think at least with that connection and how hard Frank Reich drills discipline and fundamentals, which Carson Wentz had none of last year, and especially with, I think, the upgrade as a team overall and the talent level overall that Carson Wentz is experiencing here, I think he's going to see not the best version of him. I think 2017, I mean, that's really the peak of what you're going to see from a guy like that. But he certainly can be good in this new offense. And then will they regret taking Quittipe over an offensive lineman? I mean, as I said before, Carson Wentz we saw last year without an offensive line really does get shaky. I mean, Christian Darrisaw was on the board. Tevin Jenkins was on the board. I would have liked to see them take either of those guys at the spot they drafted. I don't know. I understand why they took an edge player. I can understand why you would take Quittipe. I think that was a little bit of a fall for him. But I do think they should have addressed offensive line, at least that left tackle spot, a little bit more than getting an injury-prone Eric Fisher on your team. So we will have to wait and see with that. I think they're going to regret it slightly. I'm not sure how well Eric Fisher is going to come back, but that's what it is. And then can they avoid the injury bug? It looks like the answer to that is already no. So we're just going to move on from there. Some key players for this team. Carson Wentz has to be number one. If he plays well, he really elevates this team to a whole nother level. And that's kind of been the case with this quarterback position ever since Andrew Luck retired. It seems that as soon as he retired, the team got really good around him, which is quite unfortunate because I think a lot of people expected them to at least make the Super Bowl one of the years they had Andrew Luck. And then Eric Fisher, next up, they have a lot of faith in him to perform on Carson Wentz's blind side this year. We'll see how it works out. I don't know if I have 100% faith in him. I think he'll be good for them, but I think they did kind of miss the mark a little bit in not drafting somebody at least to have as a backup plan in case Eric Fisher gets hurt again or just is mediocre, honestly. And then Quittipe is my third guy. They drafted him over drafting an offensive lineman. And it shows to me that they really thought highly of Quittipe, and they have a lot of faith in him to perform well. It seems like, as of so far, he's been doing really well in the preseason. We'll just have to wait and see if that translates to the regular season as well. The best fantasy players for this team, the first guy is very obvious, Jonathan Taylor. As I said before, the receiver room is a little weak, and he's going to get guaranteed carries. And with Quentin Nelson and this offensive line, that really does help to elevate his draft stock, and you'll see him go in the first round this year in redraft leagues. Michael Pittman is next. He is a kind of breakout candidate for me. He's a flyer you can get in dynasty leagues. I have him on one of my teams, and I think if he can stay healthy, it seems that T.Y. Hilton is going to be out for a while. His stock is certainly up, so if you drafted already and you drafted Michael Pittman, such as myself, then congrats to you because you've got someone who's got a lot of value behind him. You could even use him to trade in the future, especially now with T.Y. Hilton getting hurt, maybe retiring as soon as next year. Carson Wentz is the next guy. If he's healthy, then sure, take a flyer pick on him. He's probably going to go late now, especially with this recent news of his injury and whatnot. I think if he comes back, though, he's going to have a solid season. You could probably draft him in dynasty leagues somewhat late and be able to take a chance on him and hope that it works out. And if he does work out, that's just another quarterback on your team that you can trade later. You can start him in your lineup, stream him when you need to. Really is the best of both worlds if you have Carson Wentz on your team. And if he sucks, then you didn't spend too high of a pick on him. That's the one thing I would have caution with when it comes to Carson Wentz. Just don't overspend on him. And then my sleeper player for dynasty leagues is Nyheim Hines. And this really only applies to PPR leagues because outside of that, he's going to be kind of worthless. But as a handcuff to Jonathan Taylor, being only 23, 24 years old, he's a damn good handcuff to have, especially in the case, that Jonathan Taylor, for whatever reason, goes down, he gets hurt, he pulls a Marlon Mack, gets out for a year. There is a chance that he can step up and maybe get some carries even. But he's certainly going to be better as a receiving back in that sort of sense, and he might get you some decent PPR points here and there. It's kind of hard with the Colts. They don't have a true sleeper because I don't think Pittman is necessarily a sleeper pick because I think people kind of know that it's sort of trending toward him being the number one here. But that's who I have so far is Nyheim Hines in this spot. A schedule overview for them. They do have the 9th easiest schedule in the NFL. Some key games. Week 3 at Tennessee and Week 8 versus Tennessee. These are going to be good matchups to really gauge how they're doing this year. It's kind of unfortunate that they played them this early with the news of the Carson Wentz injury. I would have liked to see them play later in the year when both of these teams are at their full force, and we'll talk about Tennessee a little bit later in these power rankings. Week 12 at home, playing Tampa Bay. Playing the best team in the NFL, it's going to be a challenge for them, and hopefully by that midseason mark they're going to be prepared for it and have everything in place to be able to really give them a run for their money. You also have Week 15 playing versus New England, who has a bye week, the Colts have a bye week the week before playing New England, so that game is very winnable for them. And then Week 18 at Jacksonville, depending on how Jacksonville performs this year, they did just trade Gardner Minshew, so it seems they have a lot of faith in Trevor Lawrence depending on how they perform, this could be a little tougher of a matchup for them than they would like, especially going into Duval. We'll see how they perform in that one. My prediction for them, I have them going 10-7. My floor for them is 6 wins. You know, there is a real chance that Carson Wentz is hurt for a while. There's a chance that Eric Fisher sucks this year. There's a chance that Quentin Nelson is out for a little bit of time. T.Y. Hilton being out of there. Paris Campbell could get hurt. There's a lot of pieces here that could potentially fall over to make this Colts team look really dreary in their outlook besides the defense. But that is kind of the thing saving their floor here, is that defense is still really good, especially up front there with some of the guys they have with that solid secondary. So I think you can expect at least 6 wins out of this team just based on talent level alone. We saw when Jacoby Brissett was their quarterback, they went 7-9. So I think something similar to that, where I don't think they have anyone as good as Brissett besides Wentz to back him up at this point in time. I think they lose 1 win there. My ceiling for this team is 13 wins. There's a chance that Carson Wentz is back by week 1 and is healthy. There's a chance that Eric Fisher looks really good. Quentin Nelson's injury is really nothing. Michael Pittman really steps up as this wide receiver 1 here, and all these guys stay healthy. The Vegas over-under for this team is 9 wins. I would say take the over. I mean, as long as we know when Carson Wentz is coming back or have some sort of a timeline for that. But if not, it's really hard to make a bet on this team either way. So finally, I really do kind of feel bad for Chris Ballard. He's really tried his hardest to make a complete team here. I mean, the biggest issues that he keeps running into are players with injury concerns and the quarterback situation. And I guess that part of that can be placed on him for drafting players and acquiring players with these traits and these stigmas attached to them, but it really has been terrible for them in terms of trying to find a solid quarterback ever since Andrew Luck retired. However, if Carson Wentz works out, if he is great, this team could rise in these power rankings significantly and really become a true Super Bowl threat. However, they could also really fall out of this number 12 spot. Even as I was making this video, I had my reservations about placing them at number 12 and maybe bumping the Chargers up another spot because I'm higher on them than I am on the Colts, it seems, at this point. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Do I have the Colts too high, too low? Let me know. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, as well as subscribing and turning on post notifications. Just a reminder, every single day leading up until the NFL season, you will see a new breakdown from me for every single team, eventually finishing out these power rankings. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.